Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Kathy Sierra, and I'm from the Office of Student Assessment. Joining me today is Yvonne Leon. She's from the ESE department. We're your FSAA team. We collaborate in administering all things FSAA. And we've never done this before with Datafolio. This is the first time we're doing this. I know that there's a lot of questions, so we figured, let's take advantage of Zoom and have a little informational meeting for you guys. So before we start and go over a little bit of housekeeping, we have you muted right now. You can type questions into chat, and then if there are times when we need to pause, we can answer questions. Right now the group is really small, so there is a possibility of just letting you guys unmute. But if it gets a little bigger, I just want to keep it muted for now. Also, this meeting is being recorded, so when we're done and I've got it all edited, I'll post it and let you guys know where it's posted so you can refer to it. Basically, that's all my housekeeping for now. So I'm going to turn it over to Yvonne.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to see some familiar faces. Welcome. Like Kathy said, I mean, this is something that been so many changes, and changes keep coming, and we're just living this pandemic day by day, right? So, we want to make sure that we just attend to everybody's concerns and needs, and we answer all questions the best way that we can. I mean, even though we do this, we're not experts, on whatever we have to go back and get the answers from the state, we will, but we just want to make sure that, we're all on the same page with everyone, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the presentation. We're going to explain, the Datafolio, how it works, how it's going to work this year, a little bit different from last year and previous years. And then how you all are going to coordinate this with your school site and your students. You all have been invited because you are the school level coordinator for your school site, and your site has been identified as having students who are on Datafolio. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background, but being that I am remote today, there's only so much I can do to quiet her down, but I will try. But if it gets too loud, let me know, okay? So let's talk about Datafolio, okay? Now, as you know, according to ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, who took over, Nickelby, right? Who replaced Nickelby, every state has to participate in an accounting system, right? So for the state of Florida, every child has to participate, whether the child is on a standard curriculum or a modified curriculum. So the state has to provide a system to be able to assess students who are on modified curriculum. As you can see here in the state of Florida, the last time we did have the full assessment, right, we had about 31,000 students participating in the FSAA, right, for students on modified curriculum. Now, in order to make sure that every child can participate successfully in that assessment, sorry, is he very loud? Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm going to hope that they're going to stop. But, okay. So the state had to be sure that they are able to provide an assessment system to students on all levels of the FSAA, right? So the state came up with 2 different assessment types. We have the FSAA performance task, which if you're not familiar with it, it's your basic assessment for students, which is kind of just like your regular assessment. You have 3 choice, you have questions with 3 choice options but very accommodating, right? The student selects the answer working with a teacher one-to-one, whether the student can communicate verbally, whether the student communicates with eye gazing, with some type of assistance, but not as much assistance as a student would be on Datafolio. And I'm going to explain that to you now in a minute. So we had about 30,000 students participating in that performance task, and we had about 900 students participating in Datafolio, and that's for the whole state, okay? So as you can see, Datafolio is a very small percentage of students, okay? It is the 1% of the 1%. So every state says that your assessment, right, the students on modified curriculum should make up 1% of your total population, okay? And then of that 1%, we have the 1% or less of students on Datafolio. So it is a very, very, very small number. Okay, so now, in order to assist each state with, actually, in order to assist Florida, because we're going to talk about Florida, in order to assist Florida with the assessment of the Datafolio, they came up with an assessment planning resource guide for IEP teams. Now, we are asking that every school level coordinator, provides this to their teachers, gives them the link, knows where they can find it. Anyone that is sitting in an IEP meeting at your school, whether it's Datafolio, performance task, or regular assessment, they should be familiar with this guide, because this guide really, really explains the process of, you have a student, right? The student, should the student be on modified curriculum or standard curriculum? What is the pathway to make sure that you're going to assess that student correctly? So this is really important, and we're pushing that every school site is familiar with this guide, and everyone who participates at any level, right, knows where they can get this information. And you can find this on the FSAA portal. Now, when the IEP team meets, right, as a team in an IEP meeting to make the determination if a child should be placed on a modified curriculum, you have this checklist, right? So this is the checklist that you find in our IEP, in our ESEMS, right? You have that checklist, and it asks you those 3 basic questions. Does the student have that significant cognitive disability? Even with appropriate allowable accommodations, is the student still able to participate, on the general content standards? And does the student require instruction in academic areas such as, English, math, social studies, and everything else on access points? And we know that if the team answers yes to these 3 questions, what happens, the student is now considered for modified curriculum, right? So that's the first step in the process. You have the student sitting there, it's decided, of course, the student has been evaluated correctly. 3 yeses, student is placed on a modified curriculum. But now, how do you make the determination if the student should be placed on the FSAA performance task assessment or the Datafolio assessment? Well, the state came up with some additional questions, right? And we're working right now with ESEMS to see if we do add these to the IEP, right? Because I think that it would help. So we're back and forth with this part. But if not, in that resource guide that I just told you about, it explains that next step, that once you make the determination of modified curriculum and you want to go to the next step, if that child should be on Datafolio, you have to make sure that you answer these questions to the best of your ability, right? And the first question here says, does the student primarily communicate through cries, facial expressions, eye gaze, and/or change in muscle tone that requires interpretation by the listener or observer? This is one of the most important ones, okay? Is the child able to communicate? Okay, that's how I put it in layman's terms. Can the child communicate? In however manner they can, okay? If the child does not speak, okay, but the child can point, they communicate, okay? If the child can answer a question by eye gazing and finding the correct answer, the child communicates, okay? It's when you have this child that cries, that you cannot figure out really what the needs are, what they want, you know, how they feel, if they can get to a right answer. That is the child that should be placed on the Datafolio. So that first question, a little tricky, you know, but if the child does not communicate in any way that you have to kind of figure out, the interpreter, right? Then that answer to that question should be a yes, okay? The next question asks you, you know, does the student respond or react to sensory input, but input from another person, but require actual physical assistance? So now you need the teacher to assist that child, right? Hand over hand, hand under hand, move his face, his head, move him around to get to the answer. You know, really requires that from the teacher, that assistance, right? Here's another question, you know, very important. If it's a yes, this is a child that would need the Datafolio. Does the student exhibit reaction primarily to stimuli? So you don't know exactly what the student's needs are. All you see is that they're crying, they're uncomfortable, they're tired. You have to figure it out. That's another yes question. So in this case, if the team answers yes to any one of these three questions, then this is a child that should be considered for Datafolio. It does not have to be yes to all three, but it does have to be yes to at least one of those first three questions. Now, those first three questions, usually it's a child that has never taken the assessment, okay? So now let's say you have a child, right, who is in 4th grade, 5th grade, right? And you notice that this child's performance on the FSAA performance task has not been well. You know, very, very low score or no score at all, because for some reason they cannot answer enough questions on the test, right? Then this is a child that you would say, you know what, we gave them the opportunity to be on performance tasks, but the child has not been able to show any growth, right? In 3rd grade and in 4th grade, this child really belongs on the Datafolio assessment, okay? So if you answer then yes to that question, this is a child that you might consider making that change, okay? But always remember, all of this has to be looked at as a team decision before you can make that change. We always want to give the student the benefit of participating in the FSAA performance task before going to Datafolio, okay? All right, so the Datafolio, what is it? Well, like I said before, this is for a student with the most significant cognitive disability who typically does not have that formal mode of communication, and whatever that may be formal, right, for them, and that they're pretty much working at that pre-academic level, okay? Now, this assessment is made to show that the student is making progress across a access towards academic content and not really mastery of content, because these students, they're not being looked at as mastering this content. It's how am I getting to that content with assistance, okay? Because, and I'm going to show you now, these students, they're trying to access the curriculum with something called a level of assistance, right? And what that is, level of assistance, is support given to the student by the teacher, okay? It's not, you know, so the support is provided to the student by the teacher. It's not how the student responds, okay? And it's not a response accommodation. It is what level of assistance are you providing the student, the teacher. When I say you, I mean the teacher, right? So we look at this continuum, right? And if you can see the chart here you have the different levels of assistance, and they start all the way on your left with non-engagement. So you have a child who's totally not engaged, and you want to work them up the continuum all the way to being independent. Once they're independent, they can move from being in Datafolio to performance task. Okay, so when you provide that level of assistance, the teacher has to, they start with a baseline assessment of the student, and then based on the assessment, they decide, well, you know what, this student is really on the verbal point of this continuum. So my goal is to move the student from verbal to model. Okay, so the teacher focuses on that. That is the goal, right? So the goal, like it says here, is to move the student along this continuum, all the way to the point that they become independent, right? Decreasing the level of assistance that the teacher is providing the student, and increasing the student's accuracy within that content area that they're working on with the teacher. Okay, so that's the difference. Datafolio is very different from performance tasks, right? Because the Datafolio is really looking at how much assistance am I going to provide that student to get from one point of that continuum to the next point, right? So if you're new to this, you know, school level coordinator, or even teachers new to Datafolio, it's a little bit hard to understand at the beginning, because this is structured a totally different way than the performance task is structured, right? So when a teacher is going to, when a teacher is going to assess the student, the assessment is really based on collecting evidence in the classroom. So the teacher is going to look at, what are the content standards, right, that I have to teach the student in my class, right? So you look at the content area that they're in, what are their standards or the access points, right? And that teacher is going to collect evidence based on regular classroom activities that she's doing throughout the year, right? She's going to collect evidence 3 times in that year. And what she's going to do, she or he is going to do, is they're going to choose the same activity choice, right, for the 3 collection periods. And that teacher is going to provide the students 5 to 8 opportunities to answer those questions, right? And then based on that, they get a score, right, for this assessment, which is really collection of evidence. So the teacher has an activity, uses the same activity for the 3 collection periods, provides the student 5 to 8 opportunities to answer, and then that is documented in different ways, right? That's documented on a form, that can be documented digitally, that can be, videotaped, all in different aspects, right? And all of that information really is found in the teacher's manual, right? And that manual, we can't say enough about it. It is very, very important. You as the school level coordinator should download and read the whole manual so that you are familiar with it, because it just has a lot of little details that you need to be aware of. But today we're going to discuss your primary function as the school level coordinator and what you must do for your school and for the teacher and for the students. But the teacher themselves, they must be trained, right? And we're going to talk about training. They must be trained and they must complete the requirement. And the requirement for training is, they should have attended a summer training that the state provided. And that was virtual this year. In past years, it's always in Orlando, and the state, says really that you should come to Orlando and take the training here, because they have a lot of different resources that they can offer the teacher. Now, this year with the whole pandemic, everything was done virtually. I know that some teachers went, attended the training, but if you have teachers that did not attend the training, what they must do is they must complete the modules online. Okay. And later on, we're going to show you, where you can find that, just in case you're not familiar with it. But the modules are online. They're all very short modules. I think they run about 20 minutes on average each module, but it starts with, from an overview all the way to the AVS system, but it gives you everything that you need to do as the teacher. And then as a school level coordinator as well, we ask that If you want to do the modules, you can do them, right? Or you can download the teacher resource guide and just be very familiar with that guide because it has the answers to all of your questions, right? But let's say for some reason there's something that you don't understand and you cannot figure out, you always have two paths, okay? One path is to call the service center, and the FSAA Service Center, they're very helpful, and they will provide you the best answers to the questions. And if they cannot answer your questions, they'll always tell you, you know, reach back out to your coordinator at the district, right? And that would be Kathy and myself, and ask the questions. And Kathy and I, you know, we work together and we do our best to answer it. And if we don't know the answer ourselves, we go back to the state. So, you know, this is an ongoing process, but we do the best that we can to assist you in the process, right? Now, continuing with the overview, the students who take this assessment, they're assessed the same way as the other students on performance tasks. You know, these are the grade levels, these are the content area, the subject areas where they would be assessed. And, you know, all that, like I said, is explained in the manual, and what the teacher has to do in order to be sure that they are assessing the correct content area, the correct standards, and everything else, because that is very important. Because if a teacher does not assess the correct standard and content area, what happens is that the student will not get a score, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do is, Kathy is going to explain to you, you know, how you find those students at your school site, because this changes. And there was one little problem last year that we had, and I see this year as we go looking through our reports, we've kind of had the same problem, where sometimes when a team is sitting at that IEP meeting, and you know, the team makes a determination that the student should be placed on the modified curriculum. What happens is that once you select modified, for some reason, right under that, the assessment decision comes out, and sometimes Datafolio is selected. I'm not sure why, because you have to select one or the other. You know, it has a little radio button, right? But for some reason, it's selected in error. And then when we reach out to the schools and we say, hi, you know, you have a student on Datafolio, the school is like, what? Datafolio? We have no idea what that is. And, you know, so, you know, Kathy is very good with this, and she's shown me a lot on how to figure out how to find the data. So she's going to explain it to you so that you all are knowledgeable enough to be able to go in there, find the data for your schools, and always be on top of these students at your school site. So take it away, Kathy.
Yeah, like Yvonne said, it's what we noticed when we contact schools and say, you have Datafolio students. They say, no, we don't. So, and to be honest, guys, this is something that you can, well, File Download Manager. I work for assessment, so we use File Download Manager all the time, and I know school assessment coordinators use them a lot. If you do not have access, you are a school level coordinator, you really need access, because this is more for just assessment. Your counselors should be using this. You can quickly find students for, you know, graduation purposes, who's met their, you know, things for graduation. All of that stuff can be found through a File Download Manager. So this is very quick on a quickie list on to tell you how to find your students on alternate assessment. So basically go into File Download Manager. If you look at number 1, the default is student details. That's just going to be very basic student information. You also go into the ESE tab and click ESE details. Then you click the load button. Once you click the load button, you'll see all of these subcategories come up, and you can just basically check or uncheck whichever categories you want listed. Your final product is going to end up being an Excel spreadsheet, and every single one of those check boxes represent a heading on an Excel spreadsheet. So you select or deselect whatever you want included on your Excel list, click next, click download, and Yvonne, go to the next slide. Then this is where we get into an Excel, and this is very, very quick and easy. Once it opens into an Excel spreadsheet, number 7, you're going to click the little data tab, and then you'll see something that looks like a funnel. That's your filter tab. The reason being is, so now you have a list of every student in your school, and you want to quickly find all students on alternate assessment. And those are one of the fields that you downloaded. And I can't see on this list, but alternate assessment happens to be one of those categories. So you would click the filter, you would find the heading that says alternate assessment, and if you see in the illustration for 11 and 12, when you click on the filter button, you get this menu, and you want to select, for our purposes, our Datafolio students, and that would be Datafolio with a D. P happens to stand for performance task, and then any student in that list that is blank under alternate assessment, those are students that are in standard curriculum and are going to take the regular FSA. So this is helpful for you guys in the springtime when you're getting your list for performance task as well. So click on D for Datafolio, and now you have a list of all your Datafolio schools, kids. For most schools, it's only a handful of kids, but I would say from now on, guys, try doing this at the beginning of the school year to catch, or even at the end of the school year, to just make sure whenever you're doing your IEPs that students haven't accidentally been placed on Datafolio. Because what has happened year after year, Yvonne and I have noticed, is that for performance tasks, we do an awesome job. I think 99.9% schools, students are tested. For Datafolio, maybe 50% of students are assessed, and it's a combination of schools not realizing that students are on Datafolio and not testing them, or something happening. A lot of times they come in from other schools transferring with the Datafolio designation, and it's a mistake. So it's good to get on top of it at the beginning of the school year if you can. Okay, Yvonne, I think I can do the next one. I want to go over quickly some testing updates for this year. As you know, we missed collection period 1 because we were all still, at home. Right now, collection period 2 is up until December 18th. I have asked the state for an extension. It doesn't look like we're going to get one. So right now, collection period 2 ends December 18th. And then, of course, we have collection period number 3 in the spring. Because of this, we kind of have to hit the ground running with this, because as you know, students need 2 survey collections in order to obtain a score, or only 1 to meet attemptedness, 2 to get a score. And because we didn't participate in collection period 1, each student will have to have a late entry form submitted, because other districts have been open since August and have been able to assess their students. We haven't. So you guys are going to have to submit a late entry form for each student. We'll go over that in a minute. Another thing for high schools, as you know, FSAA geometry can be used as a concordant for algebra. And what I mean by that is students can now use their geometry EOC and do not have to take the Algebra 1. So if you have students who were in algebra last year and are in geometry this year, don't make them assess with algebra. Just let them do the geometry, and then you can proceed that way. A reminder that because we missed last year's testing opportunities, grade 10 students who would have tested or would have taken the ELA grade 10 last year will now have to do it this year. So, and I know that means that you have grade 11 students submitting the grade 10 work, but the state said that we have to do that. And then also the Florida Department of Education has told us that MSO students are not eligible to participate in the Datafolio. I understand, and you're saying, okay, so what do we do? That's all they've told us. Yvonne was speaking to the director and asking, okay, so what do we do if we can't assess those students? And they said, well, let's see what happens. And that's kind of what we've been told. Yvonne, that's all you were told, right? I mean,
so far, that's all the information that we've received. They're trying to figure it out themselves, I guess. And then I guess once they have an answer, they'll see, because imagine this, you're collecting evidence of work, and how is that possible if the student is virtual? It's impossible. It's impossible, and you can't rely on the parent to do this. So, you know, they've decided that it's not going to happen. So whether they'll give some type of a waiver or something, we don't know,
Yeah,
but they're going to come up with something. And as soon as we know, we will let you know.
Yeah, this is different from performance tasks, because performance task is an assessment. So in the springtime, we will invite our students to come back and test. But for Datafolio, we can't, because it's a portfolio. It's not really an assessment. It's a gathering of student work. And if the student is virtual, you can't do that, from my understanding. So that's all we have on that for now, guys, but we'll keep you posted. Okay, some important dates. So I crossed out the first two rows there, because that had to do with collection period 1. I just want to leave that on there to let you know, yeah, we know collection period 1 happened. We weren't able to participate in it. So some of the things that you need to keep in mind is, once your teachers start uploading student work, they will need to submit a late enrollment form for each student. The collection period, now the collection period is the period of time when the teacher is collecting the work samples from the student. But the teacher has until March 9th to submit that evidence into the AVS system. So right now, until Christmas break, teachers should be collecting the student samples, and then they can worry about uploading it up until March 9th. And they are very strict about that. Everything has to be uploaded for collection period 2 by March 9th. And then again, for collection period 3, the student work will be collected between March 1st and the 26th, and the upload deadline would be April 2nd for collection period 3. And then everything has to be in there. And remember, you can't still be submitting stuff for collection period 2 during that time. Submission for collection period 2 ends March 9th. So I want to make sure. And even if there have been issues where not last year, the year before last, where student work had been collected in the appropriate time, but the teacher missed the submission deadline and there was nothing we could do. So I just want to make sure you know that. Okay.
And a point that Kathy made was that that difference that she said, that one is the collection of work, that collection period. We have to make sure that whenever the work is collected and it's dated appropriately within that time frame. Because if that work is uploaded with the wrong date, and the date falls outside of that collection period by 1 day, it is no good. Because that happened to us last year. We had one that the date was off by 1 day, and at that point, it was no good. So teachers have to make sure that they stay within that collection period time frame. The uploading, you have plenty of time to upload, okay? It's the collection of work that it's important. And you know, what happens with a lot of our students is that a lot of our students are fragile, right? And then with all that's going on at the school sites right now with these quarantines, imagine something happens, the student is out, right, for 14 days, and that could mean not having enough evidence. So I would tell your teacher, collect as much as you can collect during that time that you have that child in front of you, because if something happens to that child and then they don't come back, they will not give you an extension because they were sick, they were quarantined, whatever it may be. So just have to make sure that the teachers are on the ball with that time frame. Did I go the right way?
Yeah, and this is just, there's a link right there. This is the teacher resource guide. Honestly, guys, I would familiarize it too, because they might come to you with questions. This is something that it's very detailed, and it explains everything about the Datafolio process. It's got screenshots. It talks about the uploading process, and basically what the teacher needs to do. So this is an excellent guide, but for you guys, I would look over this as well.
Yeah, very important. Okay.
And then this is just how it breaks down, you know. A lot of the forms that you will need are in the appendices, so there is some details about that there, and then of course the process in the first 4 sections.
And this same format for the resource guide is also the same format for the modules, okay? The modules are structured exactly the same way: module 1 overview, module 2 assessment view system, and everything else. So, you know, the teachers ideally should have the guide and then go through the module at the same time, because that's really going to help them with the process. And even though, let's say your teacher did attend in the summer, the state training, but they still don't feel comfortable, hey, you can do the modules again. Nothing says that you can't. You know, it provides you what you need when you need it. So for sure, they can do it. And one thing I did want to bring up as I was looking at this, you know, we did send you, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Lily, we did send you a certification that your teachers must sign stating that they did attend training, okay? So make sure that they do sign that.
Here. Okay. All right. Yvonne's going to take care of her little furry pet, her little furry child. Let's talk about, so basically, guys, what you're doing is you're overseeing this process for your teachers. Your teachers are going to be collecting the work, but I know they're going to have questions. So what we tried to do was kind of give you a very broad overview of what's going to be expected and how you can assist your teachers. Okay, Yvonne.
Okay, so these are just the steps that, you know, that you should be taking to make sure that we've addressed everything. The guide, when you go in through the guide, it explains all of these steps, you know, all the information we took directly from there. You know, did you go through this whole slide, Kathy? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so registering and verifying the student information in the AVS. So how we structure this is this, right? So once we identified who was a school level coordinator, right, we provided you with the username and passcode to the AVS system. So all of you should have that at this point. Now you get into this, into the AVS, right, and you're going to give access to your teachers to be able to use the system. So in this system, the teachers are going to log in. They're going to take several steps, such as identifying, you know, their assessment choices, developing their instructional plan, and then gathering all the evidence for their students, right? Once they do all of that, they establish that level of assistance that we talked about earlier. And when they gather the first collection period, which should have happened in collection period 1, but it didn't because we were shut down, right? So in collection period 2, when they gather that information first, right, they gather the evidence, that's kind of like their baseline. And then that baseline helps them provide that level of assistance. So they fill out that late registration form. And on that form, on the bottom, it says, you know, what was the level of assistance that you determined that the student needs for participation. The teacher selects it there. They create their file, right? Their electronic files, and that depends on how they're doing it. In the guide, it explains that it could be simply just a data form where they show, you know, what they did. They ask questions. They gave students opportunity to answer the question. You know, what was the score? Or did the teacher have a digital recording of the student? Right? Whichever the format is that they assess the student, that is the way that they're going to upload the file, and it explains it there in the resource guide. So they start their uploading of the file once they completed, in our case, a collection period 2. Then we come around again to collection period 3, gather that evidence again for the collection period, get in the required forms at the end, because at the end of the whole assessment process, we have additional forms that the teachers need to fill out. One would be the ethical form, that they did this in an ethical manner. 2 would be that if they did do a digital recording of the student, they did get permission from the parent to record the student. That is very important. So they get all those forms needed, and they upload those forms as well into the AVS system. Okay, so here this kind of explains some things that the teachers can do to make this process a lot easier, and for yourself as well. In the resource guide at the end, in the appendices A, you can find these charts. One of them is the teacher data collection chart, and the other one is the school level coordinator collection chart. And what it is you as a school level coordinator, it helps you keep track of who all your teachers are at your school site, right? Because some of you are small and you may just have one teacher or two teachers on Datafolio, but some of our centers, you know, are large and they have a lot of students on Datafolio, so they have to keep track of the teachers and the students. So these charts provide you with that resource to be able to have everybody on one chart, so that you can find this in Appendix A of the resource guide. Remember what I said about training. You know, the teachers must complete the modules if they did not go to training during the summer. Whenever you want to get into the FSAA portal, the easiest way that I find, because if you look on the bottom, you'll see that long link to get in there. If you just go on Google and you put FSAA Cognia, because Cognia is the vendor, it brings you right up to that, okay? It'll bring you up to the FSAA main portal, where you can find everything that you need. But if not, you know, this is the link, and I believe, Kathy, they did get the presentation, correct?
This presentation, yes.
Yes, okay. So you have the presentation to share with the teachers, and you know, it has the links there, but at any time you're in front of the computer, all you have to do is put FSAA Cognia, and you'll find access to the portal right away, okay? So the virtual training must complete the 4 modules. As you can see here, like I said, they're very short, within 15 to 23 minutes is the longest one. Gives you all the information that you need. You as a school level coordinator have access to the modules as well, simply by going in through the other tab. As you can see on the top here, it says AAC SLC resources. Here takes you, but I believe that the modules are pretty much exactly the same for you as well. Okay, and then you'll also see in the portal that you have the tab for the AVS, and that's the electronic system where they upload the data, right? And all that is explained in the manual and on the modules. Logging into the system, that tab that I just showed you that said AVS, when you go into the AVS tab, you have this that comes up, okay? You have your credentials that were sent to you on November 10th. Here's the actual login for the AVS if you're not in the portal, but you go in through there, you type in your username, you type in your password, and you have access to the system. Here, it's where you're going to provide the teacher and the student accounts on the AVS system. If you do not assign, if you do not have, if the school does not have an assigned a SLC, then it has to be created. But well, everybody here for the purpose, is assigned, but the SLC is the one that's going to assign the accounts for each teacher. And then you provide the teacher with their credentials, just like we provided them to you. If you kind of want to keep the same format, you're welcome to. You can come up with your own format, your school code and maybe the teacher's ID number and their initials, but just try to be consistent so that if you forget, it's easier for you to do it, right? To just come up with a new username and password. But at any time, if something happens and you're locked out of, the teacher's locked out of the system and you cannot access it, you can always contact Kathy or myself, and we are able to provide, to unlock it and provide new credentials.
Yeah, and let me just mention real quick, so you guys are going to have to go in. So your account has been created. You already should have that login. If you don't, let me know. So when you create your teacher accounts, it's going to ask for ID. Just use their employee ID. It'll ask for their email address, and it'll ask to create a password. And that's what Yvonne was saying. If you want to do something generic so that they don't forget it, do that so they can sign in. Also for students, I believe they ask for ID, use their FLE ID.
You have to use
Don't,
the FLE ID.
yeah, please don't use the MDCPS ID, because remember, this is a Florida test, and when we get the results back, we need the FLE ID in order to match the records with our database.
Mhm.
And then also make sure when you create your teacher account, provide them with the login information, whatever you chose as their username and whatever you're going to choose for their passcode.
Exactly. And another piece of information I believe that they ask for the teachers is, what is the content area that they're teaching,
Yeah.
So it's going to ask you, grade level and then content area, so that you can provide access to that, so that, kind of makes it harder to have a mistake and then actually register the student for wrong grade level or something like that. So they kind of pinpoint to the access that you provide them. Okay. Something that they started with, I think it was last year, was the Learner Characteristics Inventory, LCI. This has to be completed by the teacher. And this is just asking about the students' learning environment, pretty much, and so forth, and how they communicate. So the different characteristics of the student. So when they're completing each student file, they have to answer these questions. If these questions are not answered, they're going to get an incomplete at the end. It's going to show up as something is missing. And last year we had a hard time with this one because we could not figure out what was missing. And it was these questions that the teachers must complete this for each student. Okay, step 2 and step 3. Okay, this is actually one of the most important parts. The teachers really need to identify the correct activity choices for assessment, and then develop their instructional plan. And it should not be hard, because the teachers should be teaching to the access point standards, right? So if they're teaching the correct grade level, the correct standard, right, then they just have to come up with the activity. But the activity choices are pretty much given to the teachers in the blueprints. So when you go into the Datafolio blueprint and activity choices in Appendix B, it'll tell you, here's the standard, here's the access point, here's the essential understanding, here are the 3 choices that you can use, right? And everything is there. They don't have to make anything up. They can directly use what's there to assess the student. So it's really not that hard. And there's a lot of resources there. So being familiar with that manual is key. Teachers must know that they have to choose 1 activity choice for each of the 3 standards per content area. The same activity choice, like I told you before, must be used for each collection period. It must integrate with the curriculum, and the teachers need to have a plan. What is it that what is the activity? What are they going to assess? And it's going to be the same thing throughout the 3, well, in this case, the 2 collection periods. Step 4 and step 5, like I said before, it's kind of finalizing the process and everything, right? Gathering the collection between November 16th and December 18th, making sure that they identify the correct level of assistance and goal. And this is all done on that late enrollment form that we're showing you here on the screen. Everything is identified there on the bottom. Originally, the teachers would use the goal setting worksheet, and they still can use it, right, for the process, but it must be identified in the late enrollment sheet. And very important, that late enrollment sheet has to be the first document that they upload with the other files. Okay, so for each content area, they must have a late enrollment sheet that goes with each upload, okay, for collection period 2. That is very important. Step 6, okay, here we're going to create those electronic files, okay? The teachers must know that it's 1 file per standard. They must name the file according to what's on your screen here, okay? You must have the correct file naming convention here. You have to have it, student name, what is the standard, what is the activity choice, what is the collection period, just like that with the underscore, okay? It's explained in the manual, it's explained in the modules. If the teachers have any problem with it, they can always contact the FSAA Service Center. You can contact the Service Center for those technical questions, or you can reach out to us if need be if you can't get your answer. Once everything is completed, everything is uploaded, you as a school level coordinator will start to see the progress, right? And here you can see that when you're monitoring the progress, you're going to see, since we're starting with collection period 2, once the teacher uploads the evidence for collection period 2, you will see that little box with a number 2 in it. That means that they did what they had to do for collection period 2, and everything is in complete for collection period 2. They are not missing anything. If you do see this little red circle with the little white line in the middle, right? That means incomplete. That means the teacher missed something. There was something missing there, the form, that characteristic questions, something. They missed something for that collection period, and they need to go back and they need to fix that, okay? And remember what we said before, the collection of evidence, right, has nothing to do with the submission into the ABS. So what's wrong here is not the evidence, but what's wrong is the actual way that they uploaded, or they missed something answered or uploaded into the system. Once you get the little box that says number 2, you know that they are done for that collection period. Then we go on to the next collection period. Collection period 3 comes along, right? Teacher provides the instruction, collects during March 1st through March 26th. The teacher must monitor the students. I'm sorry, my boss is calling me. I just clicked, I couldn't answer. Okay, so it must monitor the students. Once the students have been selected, once the students' file has been uploaded into the system for collection period 3, now you will see complete, right, for collection period 3, and you'll get the little green box with the number 3 in it. So now you know that they uploaded 2 and they uploaded 3. In previous years, when we had collection complete for 1, 2, and 3, at the end of the process, you would get a star. That means you were done, you were good with everything. We will not get the star this year. So this year, what we're going to get is box with the number 2 and box with the number 3 that says that you are complete. The teacher has done everything that they were supposed to do. If you have that little circle, something is missing along the way, and you know, you need to go back. You need to let them know, hey, you know, please go back into the system, find out what's wrong, you know, call the service center, try to figure it out. If you can't figure it out, to let you know. And if you can't figure it out, you know, let us know, and we'll do our best to help you out with the process, okay? Step 8, at the end, like we said, these 2 final forms have to be submitted. You need the ethics and data collection form submitted, and you don't need both, actually, you need one. Ethics, everyone needs to submit that form, but if the teacher did collect any evidence based on a digital recording, they do need to have the consent form signed by the parent, okay? So please tell the teachers they need to sign first before they get that digital recording, right? And then they upload this at the end, but don't get any recordings without this signed by the parent, all right? Also, one thing I did want to bring up, the teachers should not be using their phone to collect this digital, to collect the evidence in digital format. It should be done with some type of school device. Now, to be honest with you, none of our schools have collected evidence with a digital device. I guess nobody wants to do it. I don't know. I mean, I saw it. I thought it was pretty interesting because you can actually get the student, you know, you can actually get a video of the student doing what, you know, what the process is. Maybe teachers don't feel comfortable doing it, whatever it may be, but please note that it must be done with a school device of some kind. And maybe that's the issue, that we don't have appropriate devices, but it cannot be done with a personal phone. Okay. The AVS closes on each one of those, you know, when you have to upload it, it's usually at 11:59 p.m. But that last one is on April 2nd, 11:59 p.m. Please don't wait. Tell your teachers, don't wait till that last day. You know, that's usually when we will have a problem. Try to do this at the beginning of the uploading to make sure that they have completed it, that you as the school level coordinator will see that little 2 for collection 2, the 3 for collection 3, nothing missing, everything is there, everything is done, checked off, okay? Because that's when you will have a problem. And we don't know what this year is going to bring. In past years, not with Datafolio exactly. I mean, Datafolio is always a little bit different. They wait till the last moment, and then the state doesn't want to extend, and then we have to call and kind of cry to them that please, that we made a mistake, that, you know. So to avoid all of that, just make sure that your teachers do this with at least a week before the end of the upload period. So if they do have an issue, they can call the service center or contact us so that we can assist with any issues that you may have. Okay. All right. Some errors that we've seen in the past, and that the state themselves and the vendor has noted. The most common errors have been that, number one, evidence is not aligned to the activity choice that they chose. Evidence does not have 5 complete and unique opportunities minimum. Remember that it said 5 to 8 opportunities, right? So if the teacher only gave the student 3 opportunities, it's not enough, you know, and it's not going to be accepted. So they must provide at least 5 complete opportunities. The wrong genre for ELA, multiple LOAs identified within that activity choice. Remember, it's only one LOA. Once they get that baseline data, they should have one level of assistance needed, okay? The student needs this level of assistance for this activity choice, okay? And remember, they may need one, and I mean, I'm not absolutely sure about why, but they may need one level for one content area and a different level for another content area. The student, you know, may have more of an interest in one area, such as science, and is more motivated, and you'll see that for some reason they're able to do a little bit more in that area. So is it uncommon to see that they have 2 different levels of assistance, one for science and one for ELA? No. Okay. So that's why you have to have a level of assistance for each one of those choices, for those activity choices. Uploading the evidence to the wrong standard, that's a common error. And uploading evidence for the wrong student, that's another common error that we've seen. Before I talk to you about that blueprint, right, and I told you that everything is there, this is just a small little chart of the blueprint. But in this box right here, under the note, you'll see that this is exactly where it tells you that the teachers choose that one activity choice per standard from the choices in that column that align to each activity period collected, and that they must use the same activity per standard across the 3, in our case, 2 collection periods for this school year. But everything is there in the blueprint. They do not have to make anything up. Go to the guide, go to the appendices in the back, find it, it is there.
Yeah, there's a blueprint for every grade level, every content.
Yes.
And also, Yvonne had told me one of the biggest issues why students don't get credit is that the teacher has assessed the wrong standard. So they need to make sure they adhere to whatever the blueprints say need to be, the standards that need to be tested, and they stick to that.
Yeah, yeah. this is another chart that you can find in the guide. And, this chart pretty much explains everything on a one view chart. It tells you what the levels of assistance are. It tells you how you know what the percentage is of accuracy for each one, right? Based on the opportunities given to the student, it gives you a percentage score. That percentage score is how they select the correct level of assistance. It explains the progress. It explains the rubric as to how a student is given a specific score. So everything is there in the guide for the teacher's reference and for your reference as well. Here is a breakdown of what the scores mean. Scores go all the way from 0, which is pretty much unscorable, okay? And they go all the way to a score of 5, I believe. It tells you what the progress was. Remember, they're looking at the progress between one collection point to the other collection point. That is why it's very important that they have for this year, the 2 collection points so that they can get a score. But if something happens and we only receive, you only receive 1 collection for that student, it is still good, because it means that you as the school and the teacher did their best to at least try to assess the student. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, because you know this part better than I do. That serves as part of the accountability portion, that the student was assessed. So you know that as a school site, the school gets points, right, based on where all students assessed. So if at least you get 1 collection period in for that student, the student was assessed. Now, what's going to happen this year with those MSO students for Datafolio, I don't know if they're going to take them out of that calculation, no clue. But if the student is in school, have the teachers do their best to collect 2 and 3. And if something happens, student didn't go, was quarantined, whatever it may be, at least 1 collection period. So here it explains, progress for a score of 2 and for a score of 3. And once again, all of this information can be found in the guide as well. A score of 4 and a score of 5 and what they mean. Okay, and one quick note for you as a school level coordinator, okay, and I know a lot of you have other roles, school level coordinator. I'm sure that you're ESE chairs. I'm sure that you're program specialist. I'm sure that you're you have all these roles, and we know that, right? Please note that if you have a child that's scoring 5s, okay, maybe that child should not be on Datafolio, okay? Perfect scores tell us that either the teacher did not assess the student correctly, or the student does not belong on Datafolio, okay? The state is looking at that, okay? So please take a look, make sure that these things are being addressed. And the same goes for performance tasks, because I know that if you are here, you're going to be part of performance tasks as well. So anytime you have a child that scores a perfect score, the child most likely may not belong in a modified curriculum, okay? And you must address that, okay, as one of the leaders on these ESE teams, because, nothing is worse than not identifying a student correctly year after year, and then that student kind of just gets left behind, right? Stuck in this curriculum that may not be appropriate for them. And then what happens later on when they're trying to graduate, from high school, and now the parents believe, oh, my child can do something else, if the student is placed in the correct curriculum type, standard curriculum or modified curriculum, we're good. But just be sure that, everyone at your school sites understands the difference between that standard and that modified. If you're part of those IEP teams, you know what you're looking for. You know when it's time to have the student have a reevaluation, especially those young ones that come in with that modified curriculum on their IEP since pre-K, okay? So, you know, Kathy explained to you how to do that file download manager, and, you know, we're really looking at 3rd through 12th grade, right? But as the school level coordinator and as part of ESC, start looking at those young ones coming in as well, your kindergartners, your 1st graders, your 2nd graders that have already been placed on modified curriculum. Because just because a child is placed on a modified curriculum in kindergarten, by the time they get to 2nd grade, they have made significant gains. That is the time in 2nd grade that you want to say, you know what? Let's have a reevaluation for this child and make the correct determination if this child should continue on a modified curriculum, okay? We are still within great timing to make that change, but it does become a problem, and we see it, you know, we see it a lot of times when these issues get to due process in our legal department, when a child is not identified until they're in 10th or 11th grade as they were in the wrong curriculum for many years, okay? So please, 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 I cannot tell you how you all need to look at that on a yearly basis to make sure that the correct decisions are being made, okay? And I just wanted to plug that in there. Okay, Datafolio resources, like I told you, the best way to find all these resources is going into the FSAA portal where you can find your resource guide, your Datafolio, you know, you have the planning guide for IEP teams, you have the Datafolio teacher resource guide, you have the training modules, you have the dates, you have links to everything. Everything is there on that site. All of your manuals are there as well. Once you access Datafolio, you go into the AAC and SLC tab, and there you'll find all the resources and all the manuals. And then on the bottom of the page, you'll have training material, and you will also have the modules there for teachers to access and for yourself to access. Teachers have a tab and SLCs have a tab, but it's pretty much about the same information. Here's some more, same thing. This is on the teacher tab side. As you can see, a lot of it is the same. You might just have some different resources, such as here on the right that says, you know, high interest, low readability publishing companies, website, you know, the access. And I lost my train of thought. Oh my God, what is it called? Hold on a second. The Access Project, I think it's what it's called. I mean, that is a wonderful, wonderful resource for our students. When you go into that link through the portal, it gives you activities that you can use, lesson plans. I mean, everything is there provided for the teacher. Here's some helpful hints for documenting opportunities. It's located there on the portal as well. It will have some samples so that the teacher can actually see the documents completed and the hints and resources for each of the different content areas, the look-fors, how not to make certain mistakes. Everything is there. Access, project access, that's what I was talking about. I said it the other way around. This is one of the best sites. I mean, this is the site for anything access points. This is where a teacher should be going. Okay, when you go into the site, it gives you all the different content areas. You go into there and there's a Datafolio tab. There's also performance task tab. It gives you activities to practice before and during the school year, visual cues. There's books that can be read to the students, or if you have a book that you're looking for and you don't have the digital version, there's the way to find it through there. I mean, it's incredible, all the different resources that you can find through this site. So this one is number one. And when teachers go to training during the summer in Orlando, they have a kind of a half-day training just on using this site. So it is really good. And last but not least, these are the contact information numbers to the FSAA Service Center. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They're really good about answering the phone. They keep tabs of every phone call that comes in so that later on they can address the needs of each of our schools, right? And what is the biggest call? What was the reason for the call? How can we assist? I mean, they are great. So, they don't mind at all that you give them a call if you have any questions that you need to address during Datafolio collection. And like we said before, if they can't help you, call us and we will do our best to help you. And if not, we will find the answer for you. On the bottom, you have our contact information. Kathy and I both work together. Right now, we are sometimes in the office, sometimes remote, sometimes someplace else. So the best way to really find us would be by email. I mean, we're really good with the emails. Email us both if you like, one or the other. I mean, both would be great because if Kathy sees it, she answers it. If I see it, I answer it. We both answer it. We try to get to you as quick as we can. Okay, it's question time.
Guys, I've pressed the button so you can unmute yourself if you have a question. I noticed there isn't anything in chat.
Anybody have anything that they want to ask, they need help with? We will do our best to try to answer it. And if not, we'll find the answer for you. No? Everybody's quiet? Everybody knows this? I'm happy to hear that. Okay, like we said, I mean, even though we've been doing this for a while, there's always something, don't hesitate. No question is a dumb question. That's how I see it. You need to call us. You call us, you email us, we will help you out with whatever it may be. We're all in this together. We just want to make sure that it's done right and that's it, and on time. So we're here for you. Whatever you need, reach out to us and we are happy to help. So thank you so much for taking the time to get on this Zoom with us. That this is going to be the way it's going to be this whole year. Everything will be through Zoom. But that's great because maybe we can get more people, at these meetings. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a happy Thanksgiving and take care.
Take care, guys. Stay safe.